At Catch the Fire, we really value family, and we really want to support you to do family life well during this current situation. I'm Laura Densham. I'm one of the lead pastors at Catch the Fire in Manchester. Alongside my sister Becky, my friend Natalie, we are doing a project which will be a series of videos talking about homeschooling. The three of us were home educators before the lockdown, so we really want to share our experiences with you, tips and helpful hints that perhaps you might find helpful. So we hope you enjoy this series. Hi everyone, we are from Catch the Fire Manchester. We'd love to do a video today talking about home education. I am Laura Densham. I'm lead pastor at Catch the Fire Manchester, and I've been home educating my 4 children for 1.5 years. They are ages 3, 6, 9 and 11. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Go for it, Natalie.
Hi, I'm Natalie Pastor from Catch the Fire Manchester. I've been home educating for 7.5 years, more or less, and my children are 14, 12 and 10.
I'm Becky, Wigston. I'm from Catch the Fire Manchester also, and I've been home educating since last September, so not even a year yet. But my eldest is 5, so I'm home educating him, and then I have a 3-year-old and a 3-week-old. So Alistair from Catch Fire London interviewed you both earlier this week, didn't he? Just asking questions about home education, and what you guys said was amazing. It's just so full of wisdom and was really helpful for me, especially just starting out. But there's so much more to be said, and I know you guys have so much more wisdom on different elements of home education, so it would be great to kind of discuss that in more detail, and just kind of be a help to those who may be struggling, or to those who just have questions really. So obviously home education for us normally looks a lot different, doesn't it, from what lockdown is like now. So we're kind of in the same boat as everyone else. We've been home educating since before lockdown, but now we're kind of confined to our houses a bit more. Normally we all do classes, don't we? Take our kids to different classes around the city, so that gets us out a bit more, gets us socialising a bit more. But obviously we can't do that at the moment. So what we want to talk about today is just a bit more practical tips to help people in lockdown who have been forced to home educate, but also to just find the joy in home education. So where should we begin? Laura?
Okay, well, I'll start. I was just thinking when you just said that at the beginning of lockdown, me and Natalie had a conversation, and Natalie was saying how when I mean, in all of our experiences, we've obviously prayerfully considered home education, and we've chosen to do it because we feel like the Lord has asked us to do it. So there's been such a grace in that journey, because even in the hard days, we just keep coming back to, well, God's asked us to do it, and so we're trusting in him and doing it. But I think at the moment it's so different for everyone else, because you've just been thrust into it, and there was like no choice there, no preparation, no just like, how am I going to do this time? It was just all of a sudden everything changed. And then I was pondering about it the other day and just thinking, but there is still that grace, because God knew this would happen. And there are so many ways in which God has prepared me for this lockdown life that I didn't realise at the time. But now I'm thinking, oh, God did this in my heart a few months ago. And if he hadn't, this journey of lockdown and homeschooling at the same time, everything that's going on would have looked a lot different.
Yeah.
Natalie, I feel like you want to say something.
All right.
You went.
Yes. Yeah, I was been thinking about this, and I don't know whether it's because Becky's just had a baby, or but the thought of when you first have your first baby, you come home from the hospital and the midwife's gone, you know, the doctors have gone, your mum's probably left, and then you're sort of terrified. Well, I was anyway. I was thinking, okay, I've read books, baby books and what to do, but this is reality now. Here is this baby, and I have to, me and my husband obviously have to bring this baby up. And it was almost the same feeling when I started home educating. It was like, I've taken them out of school, the teachers have gone, you know, and then I just thought the feeling was exactly the same. It's almost very daunting, thinking, how can I do this? I'm in no way qualified. I've read a few books, but that's maybe not enough. But then looking back, I think all our children are probably walking, talking, you know, they're out of nappies. You're not an expert when you're a first and mum is the point, and neither are you an expert when you are launched into home educating, however it's begun. And I just took comfort from that okay, my children's team had survived me being amateur mother, and they'll survive the rest of it. So I think even if you can't relate to home education because you're new into it, you can probably relate to that feeling of being a mum for the first time, like, here we go. Yeah, so
that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. I was thinking as well, like, whether you've chosen it or whether you've been thrust into it, the benefits are still very much the same, aren't they? Like, first and foremost, I decided to home educate because God told me to. But one of the things that I struggled with when Eli was at nursery full time was his little brother, my second, Josiah. He would just miss his brother all day, and he'd just be like, can we go pick Eli up now? Can we go get him? And then we'd pick Eli up and he'd just be so tired from a day at nursery that he wouldn't want to play. And just seeing their quality time as brothers kind of fading a little bit, that was one of the reasons why I decided to home educate. And when lockdown happened, I was kind of like, oh, how's this going to go? Like, the boys are going to be climbing the walls, they're going to be fighting all the time. But actually, the quality time that they've had together has brought them so much closer. And it's almost like they've shifted into, well, we're all each other has, so let's play together kind of thing. And just seeing their relationship grow is one of the huge benefits of home educating, and that's for all of us, isn't it? And just more family time, isn't it? Like, I've just loved, my husband's working from home, so I've just loved having all of us as a family unit together and being able to slow down and just be present in each moment, and we're not in a rush to get anywhere, so we can enjoy each moment as a family. So yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits, whether you've been thrust into it or whether you've chosen it. And you were saying as well on in your interview, I can't remember, I think Laura, I think it was you were saying about you're able to incorporate your values into what you're teaching your children as well. So which is a massive deal, isn't it? Because that's the foundation. That's what you want to be the foundation of your children's lives, isn't it?
Yeah, I found when the kids were at school, we got into such a routine of like, get up and shout because everyone's dawdling and we're going to be late, and then drop them off at school. And then I'd feel really bad when they were at school because I was like, oh, our morning was awful. And then I'd pick them up and then it would be like homework, tea time, bath, bed. And because when we first started home educating, we were planting a church. We were planting Catch Fire Manchester, and so our weekends were generally full of like church events and all that comes with planting a church. And I felt grieved that I didn't have that time to just really sow our values in. So that was something that was really on my heart for when we started this journey of being really intentional about what are the things that I can sow into them when I have this time with them. that it's not just ticking all the boxes of maths, English, science, but like the most important thing to me is that they know our values as a family, that they are kind to one another, that they're showing generosity, they're showing love to not just to each other but to everyone. And I think a lot of the time those values just come out of being together and just through organic conversations. And when you have that time, like now in this season, we have that time that we get to spend with them, then I just love just getting to have those conversations, those discussions, and like, oh, what do you think about that? What do you think Jesus thinks about that? And just constantly like bouncing off each other ideas and heart revelations and stuff. That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah. I think conversations is very important, because we might not have like a written record of education in that way, but a lot of the education we do is probably, like, if you're anything like we are, is from good conversations that you've had with them. And you know, if somebody, the LEA lady, isn't it, if she comes to inspect and you can't show that on paper, but it's just a massive part of what you do, having that time to delve into topics with them and conversations I think that's great.
Yeah,
the best.
We've started we used to do devotional time, so I do some book work with Eli in the morning, and then we'd have devotional time at snack time, because then I would get their attention if I had a snack to kind of like, let's read the Bible while you eat your snack, then I know that they'd sit still. And I just felt Holy Spirit say, I want you to start the day with devotions. I want you to start out your day with me, so that you're starting out in the right place, in the presence of God. And we've shifted our routine a little bit, where we kind of start the day with devotion. So sometimes we'll do soaking, which doesn't last long with a 3 and a 5-year-old, but we try it all the same. We do a bit of Bible reading. We practice hearing God's voice. We have a thankful jar. So on a Thursday we do thankful jar, where we thank God for different things, different people, and feel that. And the difference in our day when we start with that time with God, it just sets us off well. And yeah, and for my stress levels, it's very helpful as well. Starts me off in more of a peaceful attitude, and yeah, a clear head, I guess. So yeah, I found that to be very helpful.
I think that's a really good point, actually, because I think a lot of people, when this started, I got a lot of messages saying, how do you spend time with God when you're trying to work, or when you're trying to homeschool the kids, or when you're trying to do both of those things at the same time? Like, where do you spend time with God? And I think there are pockets of time that I will try and get where I'll have alone time with God, and it helps to have Kieran, my husband, that we can do a bit of tag team in that sense. But there are also great times that we have with the kids. That is our time with God, where we study the Bible together, and we soak together, we journal together, and it's not always how we want it to look or expect it to look necessarily, but actually the truth is we can spend time with God together as families. And I actually think that's really powerful, and God's been speaking to me about that even yesterday. Was, I want you to spend more time together as a family, but going after God and seeking his presence, and we get to model that to our kids whilst we're there. This is what it looks like to have time with God, and that's a real blessing that we're able to do that right now in this season.
Yeah. So practically speaking, because I know there's a lot of people that are kind of like practically, how do you do this? How do you homeschool in this in lockdown? What does that look like? So maybe you could both share what a day in the life of you looks like, and what's working. Natalie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. So there was 2 points of frustration in our morning. One was that some of the people in the family spent a little too long in the shower, so that was delaying when morning started. Because my boys are now sort of approaching teenage, so they need showers every day, and so there was one point there where it was slightly frustrating that the morning start was being pushed back. The second one was that we had one computer and we do our maths on the computer, so we all needed a turn. So I thought, okay, we'll take the 2 points of these frustration and we'll make them work for us. So what we do half an hour of maths each. So while one of them's doing maths, the other one will be having a shower and getting ready. And the other child will be we do copy work. I don't know if you do copy work, which is literally, it's a task that they don't really need you for, because it's basically either copying out Proverbs is quite a good one. We take some verses of Proverbs and we copy those. So it's handwriting practice, and just, I think we copy poems, things like that. But that's something they can do in the room where they shouldn't really need my help. And then I will sit with the one doing maths. So I've had one-on-one time with each child. So by the end of an hour and a half to 2 hours, you should have had one-on-one time with each child. They should all be showered and dressed and have done their writing and reading. Normally is another one that they'll do. So that's worked for us in the mornings, just to keep, and then I'm not frustrated. If you can get over the fact that they're doing maths in the pajamas, it doesn't bother me, but it might bother some parents. It's not an issue for me, but yeah, so that's worked really well for us, just to keep that going. They all know what they need to do. They all are happy that they've had time with me. And sometimes I'm sat there and, they don't particularly need my help, but I have a coffee and I sit next to them and I'm here if you need me, sort of help. So that's what our mornings tend to look like, and that takes you nicely up to lunchtime. So we have our lunch. And then afternoons, we would do something all together as a family, whether it's geography or science or history, something that that all of us can do together, basically. So I aim it at each age. And then that's more or less it. Then we go into exercising and free time after that. So that's what we look like.
That's really good.
Sorry, we're both saying that's so good. It's really good. Teacher. Yeah, I think when I first started, everyone I spoke to said you just have to find what works for your family, because what I found was there are so many resources and so many different ways of homeschooling, and some ways will not work at all and some ways will be great for you. And I kept getting the advice, find what's right for you, and I was like, I don't know what's right for us. And so it took a while, and I think we have already changed after a year and a half, done things a certain way and found that doesn't really work, and we've changed. So at the moment we're using EP, Easy Peasy All-in-One Homeschool, which is a free resource. It's all online. It's a Christian lady who has homeschooled her 5 kids. She's American, so in some respects some of the subjects have a very American feel to it, so which is a little bit difficult. Like some of the English questions are about American things or places, and then some of the maths is all in dollars and stuff like that. But if you can get over that, it's great. And basically I found it really easy because I'm not the most organized person, so I'm not great at planning sometimes. But she plans out what every day looks like, and you can choose which level your child is at, what year group, or what level, because it doesn't really matter the year group. And so the kids know they all have a computer or some kind of electronic device that they can do it on. They just know their login, they just get on it, and then just can start as soon as they're ready in the morning, which is great. And there's 7 subjects a day, something like that, but one of them is Bible study, which I love, and we always do that together just after lunch. So if they get to the Bible study, they just go on to the next subject because they know we'll come back to that. And it's like maths, English, science, geography, reading, like poetry and all stuff like that. and there's like a couple of questions in each subject, so it should really take them 2, maybe 3 hours to complete the day if they're like, head down, let's do this. Which some of them can do and some of them really can't do, and it can take all day. So I did have to change that, and I gave them the option. I said, you can do all these 7 subjects, or you can just do because they get a break in the middle. I said, or you can just work up till the break, then we'll all have lunch, and then we'll do a Bible study, and then it's free time in the afternoon. But my oldest said, no, I want to try and complete the full 7 subjects every day. And she's more than capable. She doesn't enjoy maths at all, so I'll tend to sit with her during maths. But I found that really easy because it's already planned, it's at their level. And if they need help, I'll try and sit them around the table so that there's a spare chair next to each of them, so I can come and sit with them if they need to. And so after Bible study, after lunch, then we'll have free time and we'll tend to go out to the park, have some exercise, just let them play, watch a movie, do some crafts or whatever, that kind of thing. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned actually on this journey is that it's really good for them to play. I think often I would feel guilty that they're playing because we weren't being productive and we haven't done any maths today. But just reading up on how valuable play is, it's just took a load of pressure off to just, know that they're playing together, so they're learning to get on, they're learning to compromise, and often they'll do shows and things because they love drama and they love performing. So often they'll watch a TV show on something scientific or something, and then they'll produce a show telling us, then they'll perform it in front of me and Kieran and showing us what they'd learned from this show, which I love. So it's just their way of digesting the information and then expressing it and just learning through play. And that goes for my 11-year-old as well. Like just age doesn't really matter actually. It's just them just learning to express themselves and just, yeah. So that's kind of our day at the moment.
It's their time to process everything that they've learned, isn't it? I think it's so important for them to have that headspace to process everything, just like adults. When you listen to a sermon, for example, you just sometimes need time afterwards to kind of digest everything you've heard and process it all. Kids need that as well. For me, because obviously Eli's he's 5, so he's in reception. Play is a massive part of the younger ages learning, isn't it? They learn a lot through play, and I think I kind of learnt that the hard way a little bit, where initially I was just giving so much work to Eli to do because he was really eager to learn. So I kind of jumped on that, and then I would message my older sister, and because she has a son the same age in reception, and I'd be like, what did he do in school today? I just want to make sure that Eli's done enough work. And she's like, oh, they just played all day. And I was like, oh, okay. I think I'm doing too much. But yeah, just learning the value of playtime has taken the pressure off as well. With Eli, we do need a bit more routine. I feel like every child is different, and it's been really fun kind of learning what I need for my brain to work and how Eli best learns, and kind of putting that together. And something that I've found for both of us is that we need routine, and he needs to know what to expect. Otherwise he's a bit like, well, this isn't how we normally do it, and then it's really hard to kind of get him motivated. So so we'll try and do straight after devotions, we get book work out, and we do a little bit of book work, which we use Schofield and Sims workbooks, which you can find online or in WH Smith or on Amazon. They're only like £3.50 for a book, but I just find them to be really good, really helpful. So we use those, and then we just do a bit of book work in the morning, and then the rest of the day is really play. And in the afternoon, I'll kind of have an idea of different things that we could do, like get the Play-Doh out, or get some puzzles out, so it's kind of a bit more structured. But I also kind of hold the plan in open hands. If the boys are playing nicely together, I don't interrupt. Never interrupt them when they're playing nicely together. So I always kind of have a plan for the day, and we have a bit more routine in the morning with workbooks and with devotional time. But I very much hold the plan in open hands, especially in the afternoons, because you never know what mood they're going to be in, and you just want to make sure that, one, it's a nice atmosphere, it's a peaceful atmosphere, because you can't escape at the moment. But two, that they're having fun, and that they're finding learning fun, which I've struggled a little bit with. Come on, let's do this workbook, it's really fun. I don't wanna. But I'm trying to kind of make sure that he's enjoying learning, because as you said, Natalie, in your interview with Alistair, that you want to be raising them to be lifelong learners, and if they find that learning is a chore or it's hard work, they're not going to be interested in it. So I don't know how much time you want to take up, but maybe Natalie, you could kind of expand on that a little bit. Help me out. How do you make learning fun?
Lifelong learners. Well, when Daniel was in school, we realised later on that he would come home, like you were saying before, he'd come home exhausted and frustrated, and it started to come home saying he was no good at things, like, I'm no good at maths, and I can't do this. And I was thinking, no, you're supposed to come home saying, Mum, I know this, and this, and look what I've learnt today. Because, he was 6-7-year-old at that time. And that's I began to think, this isn't right. There's something not right. Why are you not enjoying it as you should? And then he started, he'd get a little bit in trouble. He'd been messing around with his cousin who was in the class, and I thought, now you're switching off from learning, you're messing instead of learning, what's going on? So, and then when we did start to home educate, we realised with Daniel in particular, he needs to ask questions and he needs to verbally process it. So he'll have a one-on-one conversation with anybody. He will sit there and he'll talk it through, and that cements it in his mind. He thinks, okay, now I understand, now I get it. And he enjoys it as well very much. So we didn't know that at the time, but we know that now. So for Daniel to be a lifelong learner, he needs to be able to express himself like that. And in a class of 30, that's impossible. She can't spend all her attention on Daniel's processing of his thoughts. And I understood that, and that's fine. So we started to look into how do you create this atmosphere where they can continue to love to learn. So we started with short lessons. I think I'd read somewhere, it was probably Charlotte Mason, because I do like Charlotte Mason's philosophy on education. You can look her up. She's from the past, but she's still very good. But yeah, she was saying if you keep the lessons short, you'll have their attention. And then when their attention starts to wane, there's not really much point persisting beyond that, because you've lost them, really. So if it's a 10-minute lesson, you just have to think, okay, it was 10 minutes, but it was full attention for 10 minutes. So that's worthwhile, basically. So the lifelong learner idea was that we'll introduce them to lots of things. We'll explore together. I won't put myself in the position of, I'm the expert, come to me, I know all things. It was very much, let's look at this together, let's see this, let's enjoy this. And really, I was amazed by some of the things that I was finding out, because I'd either forgotten or it was new to me. And so the joy of learning came naturally from me as well, because I genuinely was enjoying working with them. And I think that's the key, really. It's the joy. It's, do you love it? they'll love it really if you love it, and that can continue for forever. I mean, my dad, I would call him a lifelong learner. He still goes into libraries and sits there all day reading. He's in his 70s. He drinks in information, and he loves to tell the grandchildren about it. And he is like my ideal lifelong learner to look up to. Yeah, I think I'll stop there before I go take over the conversation. But yes.
No, that's great. That's really helpful. I think it's because children learn all in different ways, don't they? Like you were saying, I was trying to do some maths with Eli, and we had the workbook, and he just wasn't getting it. So I was like, okay, go get your Lego bricks. And as soon as he used his Lego bricks, instead of looking at the page, he just got it like that. Yeah. So it's been really fun to kind of work out. All children are different and they learn differently, but this is a great season to kind of learn more about your children and how they best learn and how you can encourage them in that. And yeah, that's been really fun.
Yeah. I think, sorry, I just add a note there. Just on that note, I've been thinking actually recently just how the structure and routine, like Becky was saying, that it helps to have structure and routine for some kids, and most kids actually, just so they know what they're expecting, and they know what you're expecting of them. But I also noticed the flexibility works as well in and amongst the routine. So whereas we've got all our subjects, like my son who's 6, was looking at I think he was looking at mountains, and he was researching mountains for something, and then he clicked on one of the links, and it took him to pictures of mountains, and all he needed to do for that subject was to have a look at them and all the different ones and where they were in the world and stuff. And he just looked at it and he went, wow, I want to draw that. And I think sometimes with structure you could be like, well, maybe do that later in your free time because we need to do maths now. But it's just like, but at that moment I'm like, okay, go ahead. And then he spent the next half an hour drawing all these mountains and showing them all the pictures. And I think flexibility kind of gives us that inkling of, oh, this is how you learn, or this is what you enjoy, or this is you kind of processing the information if we give them a bit of space and time. So here's the structure and here's what I'd like you to do today. But if you go off on something else, like my daughter did it with, I think she was making a model of a river or something, because they're doing projects at the moment. And she was like, I'd really love to do a video of me making this model. And so like that took up the rest of her afternoon, and she didn't end up doing the other 3 subjects she was supposed to. But I was like, that's fine because she's enjoying it, and that's the point. And so she set up the laptop and got all of her stuff together on the table, and was just doing a little video, and like she was on an art show. And I was like, okay, great, let's leave her to it. She's making a video there. And it's things like that where they, you know that they're enjoying it, and sometimes don't even realise that they're learning because they're just having fun. And it's stuff that they'll remember as well, because they were enjoying it. So if we talk about rivers, I'm like, remember you did that video? Oh yeah, and this, that, and the other, and yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful, especially for me because I very much like a plan. So I'd be more inclined to be like, no, you can do that later. But that's really, really helpful to just, it takes the pressure off a little bit, doesn't it? Like just let them process what they've learned in the way that they need to process it, and give them time, and hold your plan in open hands, which is sometimes tricky for me, but I'm learning to do that, which should be really helpful for the children. So yeah, that's really helpful, guys. We covered earlier about having a devotional God time as a family. How do you guys have God time for yourself and have a bit of space? How do you manage that alongside home educating?
Yeah. So I've got a little story about an apron. You have to bear with me. It makes sense. When we first started, because I finished work, I was in TK Maxx and I saw this like 1950 style apron, with flowers and a pocket. And I thought, oh, and for some reason I thought that was hilarious that I was buying this apron because I'd finished work and I was now being this homemaker, homeschooler. So that was my symbol that this is what I'm embarking upon now. So I bought the apron, came home with it. A few weeks later, my dad was preaching a sermon and he started telling me a story about a lady called Susanna who was home educating 19 children. Her husband was a preacher who traveled a lot, so she was building the home educating 19 children, and they lived on a farm, I think, and it was all, anyway, she sounded like she had her hands full. So, and then he said she used to wear an apron, so my ears pricked up. I was like, oh, I just bought an apron. So, and he said whenever she needed time with God, she used to fling the apron over her head. So, and she said to the children, if you ever see me with my apron over my head, you cannot disturb me. And that was how she had her God time. Anyway, the end of the story was that Susanna's surname was Wesley, and her two other children were John and Charles Wesley, who ended up being, two of the great powerhouse revival type men. So it stuck with me, that story, and I got a lot of encouragement from that. And it was almost like God was nudging me, going, I know you bought that apron, and I think it was, a good thing too. And then looking back now, my apron has actually become the way that I can spend time with God, because in the pocket I carry my phone with me, and while in the free time, while the children are getting on with what they're doing, I listen to sermons, I listen to worship, and I'm moving around the house, carrying, washing, whatever needs to be done with my little pockets with these sermons or worship going on, and that just feeds my soul basically. And it's just, it may not be time with God, like you would like, sat down with your Bible open, and you may not get those times, but that has been a lifeline for me, and I can carry it wherever I go. And he knows, like Laura's saying again about grace, he knows you don't have the time, and he doesn't make you work too hard. He knows he'll meet you straight away. I think he just thinks, look, I see you. He saw me buy the apron, and it was like, I see what your life is and how difficult it can be at times, but I'm with you all the time. And so my apron is my symbol. So go and buy one if you've not got one already. But for me, that's how I feed my soul.
I love that. That's great. Sorry, shall I answer the question?
I was just going to say, Isabel Allen said once, if you're struggling to find God time, invite God into Becky time. So when you're doing the dishes or the laundry, invite Holy Spirit into that time. Come and speak to me while I'm doing this, which I thought was great. Yeah.
I was going to say that we'll often have worship music playing in the lounge when the kids are playing, or if I'm pottering about in the kitchen, I'll put worship music on. And a lady said to me once at church, she was like, I was watching your kids singing along in worship and they knew all of the words, and you can tell that you play music worship music at home because they're familiar with it. And I was like, oh yeah, like I hadn't noticed that we just always have it on, in the background, but actually the kids are learning to worship and with singing, and as we're doing it as well in our everyday tasks. I think that's really important too. Just when I'm washing up, put some worship on, have a pray. And I think that there'll always be little pockets of time. Like I found in lockdown, we put the trampoline up in the back garden, which was amazing because it just gets all of their energy out and gets them outside. And we have a very tiny back garden, so it literally just has a trampoline in, that's it, and a barbecue in the corner. but like they'll go out and play a game on the trampoline all together, and I'm like, I know they're probably going to be about 10 minutes before someone comes in crying or whatever. So I can grab my Bible and know for 10 minutes. But it's just as well knowing that I'm probably going to be interrupted. This, like Natalie was saying, like I think sometimes we just want to have that time where we can just know I've got an hour or whatever to journal or to read my Bible and just pray. But when you've got the kids at home, you will most likely be interrupted, and it's just having to be okay with that and having those little interruptions, and then, you know, jumping straight back in. Anyway, God, what were you saying? Where were we? And sometimes it just doesn't end well, and I'm just like, right, I'm just gonna have to put these away now because chaos is happening. But then there's evenings as well, and I know that a lot of the time when we finally get all the kids to bed and we're absolutely shattered, but like Natalie said, God meets you where you're at, and even if you're shattered, he'll still come and he'll still meet with you and he'll still talk with you in your weariness. And so I think it's just trying to recognize those pockets of time and choosing to use those pockets of time to spend time with the Lord.
And even asking Holy Spirit for those pockets of time. I think for me, the time where I kind of get is when I put the boys to bed. I'll sit in their room while they're getting to sleep, and that's when I'll read the Bible. So it's just asking Holy Spirit for those pockets of time, or to just drop in your ear in moments of the day. Now you've got 10 minutes with me, so let's sit down and let's chat. And that's really helpful.
And they'll see you doing that as well, and that's a great testimony for them, isn't it? Because they'll remember, my mum used to sit in my room reading the Bible when I went to sleep.
Definitely, because we're setting the culture of our faith almost in our home, aren't we? And so if they see us spending time with God, it's going to be contagious, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's cool. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. We're hoping to do more of these. So if anybody has any questions or subjects that you would like us to discuss, we may not have all the answers, but we love to discuss home education because it's something that we're all passionate about and something that we all live daily. So thanks for joining us, and God bless.
Thanks for watching. We hope that was really useful for you. We're going to be placing links to any of the resources that we talked about in the video in the description. Also, if you have any questions or anything you'd like us to discuss, we will try our best to answer them. Just email us at manchester@catchthefire.com.